life insurers put life into the things you live for. The new factory that's hiring your neighbors. Maintenance on the bridge that keeps traffic flowing. The paycheck that puts pizza night on the table. Life insurers contribute $8 trillion to communities and local economies through bond purchases and other investments, and protect the financial security of 90 million American families, like yours. See how life insurers put life into America at acli.com. Paid for by the American Council of Life Insurers.
You know that feeling when someone shows up for you just when you need it most? That's what Uber is all about. Not just a ride or dinner at your door. It's how Uber helps you show up for the moments that matter. Because showing up can turn a tough day around or make a good one even better. Whatever it is, big or small, Uber is on the way. So you can be on yours. Uber, on our way.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show on WABC. Thanks so much for joining this Saturday afternoon. My next guest is David Bahnsen, who is an investor extraordinaire. He is also the author of many books. By the way, for those of you who are regular listeners of the More Money Show and the Kudlow Show, you know that I talk a lot of times about his books. He's got many of them. The two favorites of mine, and you want to get these, are Full Time, Work and the Meaning of Life. And the other is, I don't remember which one. Oh, that's the most recent book. And then the other book that I have at my bedside, because I just love turning to it and finding kernels of wisdom. It's called There's No Free Lunch, 250 Economic Truths. And it's a great book on understanding how the economy works. So David Bahnsen, thanks so much for joining this afternoon.
Well, thanks for having me, Steve.
So a lot I want to talk to you about. Let's start with your area of expertise, which of course is the markets. And I have to say I'm a little befuddled by what's happened the first 6 months, first 4 or 5 months of this year, where we had, some euphoria when Trump was elected, and then we went through the tariff turmoil and the market kind of crashed. I'm standing on the ledge of my building ready to jump. And then all of a sudden there's some trade peace and some trade talks that looked like they were leading to deals. And then the market made a nice comeback. And now we're kind of in that undecided mode. So how do you read things?
Well, look, I think that you've set up the sequence there really well. Originally, what I think the market priced the day after the election was the accurate fact that on that day, the second that Kamala Harris had conceded the election, that the Trump tax cuts were all going to get extended, that risk was removed. So then now there's no upside in the Trump tax cuts getting extended because that was priced in 24 hours after the election. There was no world. There was no world in which a Republican president with a Republican-controlled Senate and a Republican majority House was not going to extend the very tax cuts that exact same president had himself passed 8 years earlier.
So what do you put, just to interrupt for 1 second, what do you put the odds at right now that we have a bill signed, sealed, and delivered before the end of the year?
100%.
100. Wow. Okay. I put it at 90.
That we have a bill. What the Senate does to the current bill, I'm actually one who's hoping they make some changes. And even if there is, I don't think it's a very high percentage chance, but even if this particular bill totally falls apart, which it won't, I would say it's 100% that they end up
failure is not an option.
Figuring a new plan.
Right. Yeah, and failing would be catastrophic for the party and for the country.
And by the way, Steve, if all we were talking about was just extending the Trump tax cuts, and it was December 29th, they would have Democrats voting for it.
That's a great point. So, what do you make of the bill? Is it big? Is it beautiful?
No, it's necessary to extend the Trump tax cuts. It's wonderful. It is beautiful. 100% business expensing, enhanced R&D deductibility, enhanced interest expense to promote business growth. Those things are good. The spending, I just don't know when. I don't know when we're going to be able to address these runaway deficits if it isn't when we have Republican majorities. And so I do wish that they were doing more to reform Medicaid more. They're doing a good job getting rid of some of these crony tax credits, but they need to do more.
Couldn't agree more with that. I'm surprised, if you look at these numbers, I mentioned this earlier on the show. I'll recite them for you, David, because they're sort of jaw dropping. That under the current baseline, and I'm within $1 trillion, but the baseline for the Congressional Budget Office over the next 10 years is somewhere around $86 trillion. And under this Republican budget, the mean, evil-spirited, heartless Republican budget, instead of spending $86 trillion, we spend over $84 trillion.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's right. It is. There's nothing in there that's cruel or heartless. The issue, what's cruel or heartless, is that we're not reducing the deficit more for the sake of our children and our grandchildren.
Now, we've been making the case, obviously, that one of the most important factors in bringing that debt burden down is growing the economy. I know you believe in that. You're a growth hawk, as we are. But that may not be quite enough. We still need to – you can't have over $500 billion a year in fraud. $500 billion. I mean, David, you're an expert on private companies. I mean, what kind of a company with, let's say, an $8 million budget – with $500,000 of fraud could possibly stay in business?
Life insurers put life into the things you live for. The new factory that's hiring your neighbors. Maintenance on the bridge that keeps traffic flowing. The paycheck that puts pizza night on the table. Life insurers contribute $8 trillion to communities and local economies through bond purchases and other investments, and protect the financial security of 90 million American families, like yours. See how life insurers put life into America at acli.com. Paid for by the American Council of Life Insurers.
This National Foster Care Month, Marine Toys for Tots is providing hope to children who need it most. Staff Sergeant James Caldwell, who grew up in foster care himself, shares that while handing out gifts at a Toys for Tots distribution event, a little girl looked up at him, reached into her bag, pulled out a stuffed animal and said, "Someone needs to make sure you get a toy too." That simple gesture embodies the heart of Marine Toys for Tots, ensuring every child, including those in foster care, experiences the kindness that can transform their future. Visit toysfortots.org today.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Well, obviously, none could. I mean, I guess if any company was going to survive $500 billion of fraud, it would have to be a company that has $6 trillion, of annual receipts. But or the ability to compulsory tax every citizen of the country. It's not sustainable. Look, there's so many things that have to be done, and I don't know how you can get them done if you're not even willing to start talking about them. The Medicaid conversation is a very important one because I think most Americans will understand if we make the argument Medicaid existed for those who were destitute, for those who were below the poverty line. Mm-hmm. And to now have something growing to $700 billion that is being essentially used as a middle-class healthcare subsidy is not right. And I think that we have to reform that. And there's other bigger things we're going to end up having to do. The politics of it are probably not right now. But there's a lot of big things, Steve, we're going to have to do with Social Security and Medicare as well.
So you started this conversation by noting that, we got the big boom in the stock market at the start of when Trump was elected because people were optimistic. And I think you made the case, I don't want to put words in your mouth, that sort of the pro-growth initiatives of Trump are a bit priced into the market. So I guess pivoting back to how you make more money, because that's what this show is about, is the fact that the Trump tax cut is going to pass, is that all priced in? In other words, I've been saying to people, as soon as we get this Trump tax cut bill, the market's going to really go on a tear. But you're sort of saying they've already figured this out and it's already priced in. But then you have the other big variable, David, as you know. I'm talking to David Bahnsen, one of the best investors in the country. What about the trade deals? Are those priced in, or how does the market perceive this?
Yeah, so basically to your first question, Steve, I'm sad to say that there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that the good parts of the tax bill are priced in, which basically is extending the Trump tax cuts. Now, I don't know that the 100% business expensing is fully appreciated by all the companies that are going to benefit from it. But the broad market, there's not a sort of boom devaluation coming from that.
Okay.
That was table stakes, and markets do that. They are discounting mechanisms. They price things in. The tariff issue you bring up and trade deals and so forth. Now that becomes a more upside and downside, right? Markets don't know exactly how it will play out. So there is a possibility of good deals that will open up new markets for more trade, and that's underappreciated by markets and could be a tailwind. But then, of course, there's always the headwind risk, because he could tweet on any moment that he wants to go back to 50% tariffs on Europe again. So markets have an uncertainty to deal with. And in addition to the uncertainty of trade deals, there's uncertainty of what's happening in the economy while we wait.
I think that's well put. So what do investors do now?
Well, longer-term investors need to understand that even if this wasn't happening, it would be still happening in another way. It's a permanent condition of investing that there's some degree of uncertainty, geopolitically, policy, economically. The biggest issue, Steve, investors have right now is if none of this were happening, if on January 1, all the trade deals got done and the Trump tax cuts got extended, and so the White House said, we're taking the year off from being involved in markets, have at it, then markets would still have to deal with the fact that they were kind of expensive. Earnings were priced pretty high. There's too much reliance on NVIDIA and Apple and a couple of these multi-trillion-dollar companies. So we're encouraging investors to be selective, to look for value, to look for dividends, to not just assume that a $3 trillion company is going to become a $5 trillion company. That's very, very hard to do.
So last point we've only got about 2 minutes left, David. I wanted to just swing over to your great book on the value of work, which I always boast of because I think it's so wonderful, and I couldn't agree. I love books that I agree with, and the virtue of work, which is what your book is about. Just very quickly, because as I said, we only have about 2 minutes. One of the big issues, obviously, is the coming of robotics and how factories are going to be different, how we're going to lose a lot of truck driving jobs because artificial intelligence and robots will be driving the trucks and so on. How do you see that? How do you see that affecting American workers over the course of the next 25 years?
Well, Steve, I'll do this really quickly. I want people to really think about history here, to understand that we've gone through moments where things totally changed because of advancement in technology, advancement
like tractors.
in capability.
Yeah.
Well, the Industrial Revolution is the greatest example in history of how certain jobs became obsolete and a lot more jobs became created. And I don't want to ever be insensitive to the fact that someone may lose a job, but on a macro level, which is all you can really ask me about as an economist, at a macro level, I'm telling you, it's going to create new jobs. It's going to create growth, create opportunity. And it behooves us to, and you've been fighting for this your whole career. It behooves us to be a dynamic in how we think about the economy. We want mobility. We want dynamism. We want an opportunity society, because the more dynamic we are, the more opportunity can be spread to more people. And so no one has to go out and learn to code to benefit from this. There's going to be other efficiencies, other opportunities. Some people will learn to code. But my point is this is going to create efficiencies to create jobs, as it did in the Industrial Revolution and as it did in the Digital Revolution.
So we have an older population. Our demographics are older people who listen to our show, their parents and grandparents. So on the way out, what would you recommend to them in terms of getting their children ready for this new digital age of robotics, artificial intelligence? What do they need to do to get their kids ready for this new labor force?
Well, a lot of your kids and grandkids, as those of you who are listening, may be into robotics, maybe into digital issues, have an interest in this math and science, and so encouraging them to cultivate that. Now, others may not, and then the question is, is every single person going to have to work in AI? And the answer is no, and the reason is because every person was made by God with dignity, and there is a need in society for virtue, for integrity, for hard work. And that's what I'd be advising your kids and grandkids is some of you will be in computers and some of you will not. But all of you should maintain your virtue and your character because that's what employers are going to hire, Steve. They're going to hire people that they can trust, that are going to work hard.
Yeah, there was a great line in one of my favorite books, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, where the kid asks his dad what he wants what the dad wants his son to be when he grows up. And you know what he says? Good.
Yeah, that's right. I love it.
That's called virtue. All right. Well, David, so wonderful to be with you. Thanks for carving out some of your Saturday afternoon for us. And we'll be right back, folks. This is The More Money Show.
Life insurers put life into the things you live for. The new factory that's hiring your neighbors. Maintenance on the bridge that keeps traffic flowing. The paycheck that puts pizza night on the table. Life insurers contribute $8 trillion to communities and local economies through bond purchases and other investments, and protect the financial security of 90 million American families, like yours. See how life insurers put life into America at acli.com. Paid for by the American Council of Life Insurers.